are you doing to influence your community for the better? I was also asked to talk about how I got here. Why do I care about changing the world? And I'll say two quick things. One is I was just passionate from the womb, passionate and over-caffeinated, which is why I've never had a cup of coffee in my entire life. I don't need it. I actually think crazy things would happen. And the second thing is, it was certainly the influence of my parents. My dad protested the war, got kicked out of numerous colleges for protesting Vietnam. My mom was a teacher. They both taught me about social justice and that importance. And so that was a thread that ran through my whole life. You know, if I had come back from college and told my parents that I was going to become a lawyer or a banker, they wouldn't have been proud. They would have been distraught. And so I think that I far from rebelled. I actually followed in the footsteps of what my parents had taught me. And so where it all began. When I was in elementary school, I went to a school not unlike this. Many of you know Riverdale Country School in the Bronx. My dad worked there, so my siblings and I all went to school for free. We were faculty brats, and I was uniquely aware of the fact that everyone else around me was really rich, and we weren't. And they weren't necessarily happier, but it was just a different situation. And then when I went off to middle school and high school in Westchester, I lived in Mount Kisco. Once again, I noticed that in the honors math classes, for instance, I'm a baller at math, by the way. In the honors math classes, it was all like the rich kids from Pound Ridge and Bedford, and very few young people from Mount Kisco like me who were in these honors classes. And I just thought, well, this is crazy, because rich people couldn't be smarter than poor people. There must be something else going on here. There's some sort of inequality that is lurking, and what can we do about it? So I went up to college at WashU in St. Louis, and I was an economics major. And for all you young folks in the audience, economics major is not synonymous with going on into a finance profession, although that's fine. Economics is a way to think about the world in a rational and logical way that uses numbers to solve problems. All sorts of problems. The problems of finance and the problems of the stock market, but the problems of our education system. And so I actually think anyone interested in anything, but certainly in political science, as I was, needs economics to understand that. My classmates were going off to McKinsey and Deloitte and becoming consultants and going into the finance industry. And partially because of this passion I had, and partially because I was stubborn, my classmates were telling me that not-for-profits were inefficient and ineffective and not using market forces. And I wanted to prove them wrong. And so I knew that I was going to go a different route and that I was going to join a not-for-profit. And so that brings me to do something, which is where I am today. It is the largest organization for young people in social change in the world. And we have 3.6 million members, aged 13 to 25, many of them high school students, many of them college students. And they take action on whatever cause they're passionate about. But this actually wasn't the Do Something that I joined 10 years ago right out of school. This was the Do Something that I joined right out of school. It wasn't the largest organization for young people in social change. It was a tiny not-for-profit. It had 6 staff members. We maybe were impacting 150,000 young people, a bunch of teachers, we had curricula, we had all sorts of programs. I thought we were great at the time, but we really weren't doing that much. And I certainly didn't join Do Something at the time for the prestige, because no one knew about it. When I told folks about my first job out of school, they were happy I had a job, but they had never heard about it. And so I would just say, don't necessarily take your first job for the prestige. Take your first job for opportunity, for skills that you can learn. I had an incredible boss, who I still have today, and who have helped me along my trajectory. And also, I knew I wasn't going to join a cancer organization or a diabetes organization. My interests were too broad. I wanted to talk about education reform. I'll talk to you about the criminal justice system literally from today until 30 years from now without stopping. I wanted to talk about everything. And I loved that Do Something was affecting all of these different causes and letting young people decide which cause they wanted to join. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Do Something's programs for those of you who don't know, and also talk about how Do Something really embodies this TMI oversharing mentality that has served me so well. So this is a chart of Do Something membership. We're a member organization, and you can see for the past 3-4 years, we've grown significantly, from under 100,000 members to 3.4 million in January and over 3.6 million today. I show this slide not just to brag, I like bragging, and showing off how great we are, but also to talk about the importance of scale. Scale is important in my mind for two reasons. One is the enormity of the problems that face our country, our world, our planet are so big that we cannot solve them if we cannot scale our solutions. Little pilots are perfectly fine and wonderful, and once they're effective, we need to figure out how to scale them across the country and across the globe. Reason number two is that scale can be more efficient and cost-effective. Think about it. Every Tuesday, Do Something reaches out to our 3.6 million members via text message predominantly, but also via email. We do that with the press of a button, and we can motivate 3.6 million young people to act. Imagine 1,000 different community organizations across the country, each with 50 or 100 people, trying to coordinate that message to get people to act. It is much more efficient to do so at scale. And that doesn't mean there isn't a need for local knowledge, local organizations, and smaller entities. It just means if you can figure out the real solution that's cost effective and get it to scale, you will get money for your idea, and you will find a way to truly change the world. So to talk about three different, this is what we need. We need stadiums full of people. I'm a huge basketball fan. We need them cheering for basketball, but we also need them cheering for social change. So I'm going to talk about three different programs. And the first one is called Teens for Genes. You heard about it for a moment. And it's a simple idea that takes sort of the ethos of one person changing the world, as the quote from JFK talks about today, and expands it to what if thousands of people joined in. 8 years ago, I saw that a third of all homeless people in this country were under the age of 18. I called local homeless shelters throughout the United States and said, what is the number one thing that homeless teens ask for when they get to a shelter? I thought it was going to be a cell phone, a hot meal, a shower. It turns out it was a pair of jeans. Homeless kids go to school. They have after-school jobs. They want to fit in. And let's be serious, none of us ever wash our jeans, and these homeless kids didn't want to either. So we started this campaign called Teens for Jeans and just asked young people, primarily high school and college students, run a jeans drive on your campus. Donate them locally. We actually partnered up with the corporate partner Aerostall. And we'll donate each of those to a local homeless shelter. Fast forward 8 years later, you heard that every single year we clothe half. And wait, what does Do Something do? Young people clothe half of all homeless teenagers in this country. The next example, you can clap. The next example isn't as wide of a scale, but it goes deeper in impact. We have a campaign, Give a Spit About Cancer. That's right, we don't take ourselves too seriously. It's focused on bone marrow donation because we thought, what can 18 to 24-year-olds do? A lot of people ask them to walk, a lot of people ask them for money, and yet we didn't want to do that. Turns out that college students have the best bone marrow, that's most successful in bone marrow transplants, and these transplants are life-saving for adults with bone cancer or young people with leukemia. And many people die waiting for a match, especially people of color, because you need an exact match for your racial and ethnic makeup. So we ran this campaign, Give a Spit About Cancer, and just asked young people to get on the bone marrow registry. Swab your cheek with a Q-tip. That will put you on the registry for life. And that will help people who are suffering from these cancers get a life-saving bone marrow transplant. To date, we've had over 100 matches, including Mike Fantini, Do Something's head of product, who saved the life of a 5-year-old boy in Texas who wrote him a Superman thank you note for all that he had done in saving his life. So even small acts at scale can be pretty fantastic. The third example is really relevant in a school setting, and it's our most recent campaign. It's called Suspended for What? Many of you may know that young people across the country are being suspended for insane things. Especially young African American and Hispanic students are being suspended and expelled for doodling on their desk, for talking back to a teacher, for popping their gum. These aren't good things, but you should not be suspended or expelled and taken time out of the classroom so it's harder to get your degree. Suspended for What is mobilizing young people nationally, asking school administrators simply, keep data on who is being punished, what is their racial makeup, and what is the punishment for what crime. Because these punitive punishments are keeping young people out of the classroom and enabling only 70% of young people in the US to attain their high school degree instead of the full 100% that we should have. Now I'm going to move on to some ways that Do Something, again, embodies this TMI mentality. you're hired. I really, really thought about whether I wanted to even put this man's face on a slide during my presentation, but I decided for it. We get thousands of applications to do something for each of our jobs, which is wonderful. It is so great that young people these days, and again, we're from a pretty young office, want to work for not that much money to change the world. And yet, how do we choose among these applications? So I recently had a job opening, and I think I had about 700 applications for this one position. And many of the applicants were very qualified, Ivy League graduates. They had done their summer in Uganda helping underprivileged kids, and a lot of these applications looked quite similar, to be perfectly honest. And then I stumbled upon this young woman from Tampa, Florida. She didn't even have a college degree. It is not required to work and do something. And she had created a website, hirekayla.org, in which she overshared about everything. About her love of polar bears, about her love of pizza. She overshared about do something, telling us everything she knew about us, how well researched she was, how much she wanted to work there. It was the most creative application I ever got. Of course I hired her, and 6 months later she's doing a great job. Similarly to hiring, for full-time applicants, interns are also something that is a hot commodity of do something. And apologies again for putting the Kardashians on screen, who are known as big oversharers. I'm not going to comment on them either positively or negatively. But for our summer internship this year, we have over 4,000 applications for 20 paid spots. And we hate that. I hate that Stanford and Harvard talk about how many people are applying as a way to talk about how good they're doing. That just means you're turning away a lot of people. So we could say that we're 100 times tougher to get an internship at than to go to Stanford, but this is true. Our data scientist literally crunched the numbers, and he found that you are more likely to sleep with a Kardashian when you're older, in college, in a committed relationship, not now. You are more likely to sleep with a Kardashian to get an internship or do something. And so that means that when these interns are applying, we need people to stand out. One girl was applying for a job at Do Something, and she was focusing on sexual assault campaigns. She literally sent us a penis cake in the mail. We thought it was hilarious, we hired her. So you gotta be creative to get a job in today's world, not just book smart. The last thing that Do Something does that echoes this TMI mentality is we have a fail fest. You might think that as an employee, you never want to talk about your failures ever. You never want to talk about your mistakes. You don't want anyone to know about them. But then how can you improve? So every 6 months, we have a fail fest. You're nominated by your boss to present, and you have to talk about what you learned and what your organization, what your organization learned, what Do Something learned. And each learning has to have a pop culture corollary. So if the learning is, don't work with mean organizations, you show a 60-second clip of Mean Girls. And the entire time, you are wearing our fabulous pink boa to make sure that this is a lighthearted, not something to be swept under the rug. These failures, you and all of your colleagues should be learning from the TMI you are sharing that day. And then lastly, where is Do Something going? We are going global. This is not out of some desire for global domination or the fact that I want my next business trip in Indonesia. This is because young people globally, who again, young people under 30 are more than 50% of the population around the globe, they're asking for it. Their unemployment rates are higher, they're up against a lot more, and they want to make change right in their own backyard. This past December, we just flipped a switch on our website and we said, okay, you can now become a member of Do Something if you live in any country in the world, not just the US and Canada as we were previously. Overnight, we had members from 125 countries, including 100 from Iran. Young people are calling for this. And so we're spending the next few months, the next few years certainly, making sure that every young person who comes to our website is going to get culturally relevant, local campaign opportunities for them to make change in their own language, right in their own backyard. So that's what's coming from Do Something in the next few years. So enough about Do Something, let's talk about me again. So this is my quick feminist digression. It has been proven by research that when women apply for a job, they will only apply for a job if they meet 90 to 95% of the listed qualifications for that position. Men, on the other hand, will apply for a job, no surprise, if they meet 50% of the listed qualifications. And, I could rant about men being overconfident and egotistical and all those things. But in this case, I agree with men. 5 years ago, I was 27. I really wanted to be a professor. I actually have a lifelong dream of being a 9th grade math teacher and also coaching high school basketball. Like, that is in my future. But I didn't want to leave do something, and I wanted to teach. And I knew that there was an opening for a professor at NYU teaching the business of not-for-profit management. I had no business applying. I didn't have a master's degree, I didn't defend my dissertation, I didn't have any academic research. But I thought, why not? And I asked my boss to introduce me to the dean at NYU, and I had a breakfast meeting, and now I've been a professor there for the last 4 years. So all the women in the audience, just apply. You never know what can happen. Oh, and one other quick thing about NYU, I have my students do self-evaluations at the end of the semester, and never ever once has a guy in the class given another person in the class a higher grade than themselves. Only women do that. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but it's just something I noticed. So yeah, women, let's stand up for ourselves. So that brings me to the topic of discussion for this day's talk, which is TMI, the consulting agency that I founded at Do Something 2 years ago. For the past 5 or 10 years while I've been at Do Something, we've been approached by brands who wanted to know how to reach the millennial and Gen Z demographic. We've been approached by not-for-profits, especially older, more sort of longevity not-for-profits who were trying to figure out how to reach this new generation. And truthfully, we didn't have the desire to help the corporations, and we didn't have the time to help the not-for-profits. But 2 years ago, we saw that it was at a time to do something where we had, there was an opportunity to do something, and also there was an opportunity for an earned income revenue stream. We could create this consulting agency where all of its profits would go back to fund Do Something programs. This is the holy grail at a not-for-profit. So we founded TMI, and we're a strategy agency, and we help these brands and not-for-profits activate millennials and Gen Z, young people approximately 13 to 30, and it has to have something to do with positive change. We only take on clients who want to change the world for the better. And so one of the reasons we started TMI was because of this Do Something ethos of fight for the user. We thought too many brands and not-for-profits were talking down to young people instead of talking with them or elevating their voices. And we always say fight for the user. Fight for this amazing generation out there who is dying to do good, and they just need a little help. They don't need you talking down to them. Also, TMI was probably going to do something. This is our annual upfront that we have every year on Halloween, so mark it down. There's a lot of people in costume in the audience, and that's our chief data scientist. And we literally have too much information to do something, and he is sharing all of that knowledge with the audience so that people can learn. What do young people care about? What are their favorite causes? How do you activate people? And we also wrote a book. Last month, a book came out, The XYZ Factor, because we want people to steal our secret sauce. We think we're pretty awesome, and we want people to copy us. But we've also made a lot of mistakes. So don't copy those. Read this book so you make sure not to repeat the same mistakes that we do. And so again, through these clients that we've worked with over the past 2 years, again, we've been very lucky to have very impressive clientele. We've been able to give, by the end of this year, a $1.5 million donation back to Do Something just in our first 2.5 years of operation. And so we're really excited to continue this so we can continue to fund Do Something's main activities. And so I'm totally over, but they gave me an extra 2.5 minutes, and I'll use them. So these are 6 parting words of wisdom. Take them or leave them. I certainly don't know everything. This is just what I've learned over the last few years. First of all, I will just say, be humble. That's all. Be humble. Second learning. You should be humble because you should recognize that you're lucky. Everyone always says to me, like, oh, you've worked so hard to get where you are. Like, oh, you're so smart, and that's why you're CEO of Do Something. And I'm a confident person. I think I'm smart. I think I work really hard. But I'm also so lucky. I was lucky to just get the job at Do Something. I was lucky that I have supportive parents. I was just so lucky about everything. Everyone in the world works hard, and there are so many smart people in this world. But luck has a lot to do with it. And so if you don't recognize that about your own life, you are really missing out. No one wants to be bored. So I think there's this thing that it's like, young people get to have fun and like have a good time, and then once you get old, and like me, old, and Do Something, once you hit age 26, you're old, forget it. And so once you get old, that you shouldn't have fun, and you want to be bored, and that somehow professional isn't fun. Everyone wants to have fun, everyone wants to be different, everyone wants to laugh. And so, a few years ago, I was lucky enough to be on the cover of Crain's magazine, and one of my mom's friends said to her, she goes, it's so nice for Aria that she gets to be on the cover. I just wish she wasn't sticking her godforsaken tongue out with that tongue ring. And I said to my mom's friend, listen, if I wasn't sticking my tongue out, I wouldn't have been on the cover. They were looking for fun, they were looking for different, they were looking for interesting. So give them that. Hang out with people who are living your dream. Sort of a weird thing to say, but if you want to be a jam maker, because strawberry jam is delicious, go hang out with the people who are best in the world at making strawberry jam. If you're saying, I want to change the world, and you're hanging out with a bunch of people who don't care about anything, who are apathetic, who don't vote, who aren't civically engaged, who don't listen to the news, then you're not going to do anything either. Surround yourself with people who are doing what you want to do. Don't be afraid of numbers and money. A lot of people go into the not-for-profit world because they don't care about being rich, which is great, but some of them go because they're afraid of math. First of all, again, to all you women out there, you can be good at math. There's no secret sauce, it's just hard work, it's very logical. But to do something, I oversee the budgets. I make sure we bring in enough revenue, and I make sure that our expenses are low. And without that understanding of keeping a solid fiscal ground beneath you at a not-for-profit, you cannot make change. So make sure you are knowing about numbers and finance and money so that you can make the most change possible. And then lastly, be yourself. You know, yourself might not be an overshare, and that's fine. Just do whatever you should do. My favorite is about a school with two students, a fish and a rabbit. And there's two classes, running and swimming. And of course, because this is the US education system, the fish is taking remedial running all day long. Rabbit, remedial swimming. At the end of the semester, neither of them have any self-esteem. They both hate themselves, they both think they're failures, they're all cut up and bruised, and they're about to drop out. If we had just let that fish be a star swimmer, and that rabbit be a star runner, where would they be today? So as I always say, why not end with Ryan Gosling? Thank you so much, I really appreciate it.